Do I know what I'm talking about? Probably not. Is someone gonna find a contradiction in what I'm saying? Probably. Is this gonna be used against me in the future to see if I have consistency? Probably. Nah, but I'm saying real shit though, you guys will see. Since I associated myself with power scaling, many of you guys, including my personal friends, always ask me my takes on certain hypothetical matchups. Like for example, Sanji versus Kid, or like Law versus Marco. My answer to these fights would then be used to make the assumption that I think the person who wins is stronger. Now that may sound like the most logical approach to view things, it's not always true. I want to talk about the approach many of you have when determining who's stronger between characters, and I want to show you another perspective. I also want you to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Is that 80% I see? You guys stay lurking. What? Just come on out, guys. Like, stop being shy. Don't ignore me. I'll find you on another video. This won't be the end of me. Now, I want to say firstly that matchup power scaling is mainly always valid if these fights were to happen canonically in the story you are reading. In this case, let's talk about One Piece. The winner of that fight is usually who the author wants to believe is stronger, or wants the reader to believe is stronger. Even Aokiji versus Akainu, for example. Some people want to believe that Aokiji was at a disadvantage. Even if that's the case, Oda makes it pretty clear that Akainu is still the more important and stronger character in the verse. But it's when we make our own hypothetical matchups and determine our own winners and act like that's some canon material that's been written by Oda. Let me give you an example like I just mentioned earlier. Someone actually mentioned this to me and was arguing for Marco being stronger than Law because he believed that Marco beats Law in a fight. Now Marco, who's an aerial fighter who has insane regeneration, would be a very difficult matchup for Law, was his point. He said that Law would have a very hard time landing his Kroom abilities on Marco, mainly because he's not a stationary fighter like Big Mom or a reckless fighter like Blackbeard. Getting an opportunity to land Kroom would be very hard for Law, because he can't use Kroom and Room at the same time. He also mentioned that even if he does land Kroom and does a shock will or something, Marco's insane healing properties, basically his regeneration, would more likely just allow him to regen anything that Law really does. Using Kroom takes a lot of stamina from Law, so eventually it would wear him down before Marco's regen runs out. If Law wants to opt to using abilities like Gamma Knife, it would barely have an effect on him since Doflamingo was able to take a Gamma Knife and use his strengths in order to keep his organs functioning and still be able to fight at a very good level despite just taking a Gamma Knife. So you can imagine a guy like Marco, a Gamma Knife would have less of an effect on Marco. Marco's stamina was portrayed to be on a pretty high level for how long he was fighting in Onigashima. All these things combined made someone believe that Marco would beat Law in a fight, which honestly aren't bad arguments, and that could very well be a justifiable conclusion. But what's not a justifiable conclusion is saying, therefore, Marco is the stronger fighter. The correct way to compare these characters is how they are viewed in the world of One Piece, and also their feats compared to each other. Law's a part of the new generation. He's a part of the new generation that Marco directly warned King and Queen about as he threw Zoro to the roof, while basically taking a back seat for these guys and doing the dirty work while the rest of the guys shined. Law was involved in defeating a Yonko, which was Big Mom. Some would argue he contributed the most as well, being able to severely damage her on several occasions and completely toy with her strongest attack, Misery, on 2 different occasions. Being the guy responsible for digging her hole that led to her supposed death, he was awarded a 3 billion berry bounty equivalent to Luffy's. Of course, he's not on Luffy's level in terms of portrayal. Luffy should have a higher bounty, but we know why it isn't. But nonetheless, he's known as the guy who defeated an emperor and is worthy of a 3 billion berry bounty. So as we all probably can agree, Law has better feats since he was able to lead the defeat of an emperor. Compare that to anything Marco has done. I think we can all agree that Law's is more impressive. Yes, Marco clashed and went back and forth with some top tiers, but it's still not to the same level as defeating one and doing what Law did. His bounty was raised this high strictly off his accomplishment against Big Mom. The man has no territory. His crew is dog shit. So this bounty is mainly talking about his strength and the threat he is right now. So not only has Law performed the better feats compared to Marco, the man is also portrayed as the stronger pirate in the world of One Piece. People like Shanks also take into consideration the threat level of someone based off their bounty. That's how we should look at people when it comes to comparing who's the stronger combatant. Not if we just say Marco can outlast Law and he won't be able to land Kroom on him, so Marco would just win, therefore he's stronger than Law. It's just the wrong way of viewing things. Now there's some exceptions to what I just mentioned. In some cases it's not that simple, where some characters may have better feats than said person, but one is viewed stronger in the overall verse. Like Yamato and Kid, for example. Yamato to many probably looks stronger based on what she was able to do with Kaido in comparison to what Kid did to Big Mom. And since Kid mainly gets his recognition based on what he did to Big Mom, Yamato's feats is enough to consider her stronger since it's the better feat than what gave Kid his recognition. So Kid's portrayal could be better, but it's better based on a feat that wasn't better than Yamato's. You guys see what I'm trying to say? Now, if you want to go to the extreme to prove my point, because you guys all low-key agree with me, but you just don't know it. Let's make up a hypothetical right now. Luffy versus Saint Summers, the man who got low diffed by Scopper Gaban. Who do you guys believe is stronger? Luffy, right? Because Luffy is stronger than Scopper Gaban right now. But Luffy seemingly right now doesn't know the effective counter to stop their unlimited regeneration. And it was also portrayed that way when he encountered the Gorosei, basically implying that he can't do anything to them and that they're just immortal, while Gaban also having to tell Luffy that they aren't immortal, you just need to figure out something with your Conqueror's Haki. So if they were to match up right now, Luffy doesn't know shit and he fights Summers, he can't really defeat him, right? But you guys would all subconsciously put Luffy above him because of his feats and portrayal in the verse. Shit, if you even ask the government right now, like, who do they fear more, Luffy or Summers if Summers was hypothetically an enemy? They would probably pop your shit right there for even asking. Luffy just done ridiculous things and he's a ridiculous character in the verse and has a vast arsenal to where we don't consider Summers stronger and neither does anybody else. Even though Luffy doesn't have any way to defeat him right now. So you guys don't even strictly matchup scale on topics like this. So why do you guys do it strictly for other characters? There's one matchup, Luffy versus Zoro. Some people say Zoro is stronger than Luffy because Luffy is weak to cutting attacks, so Zoro has an advantage on Luffy and he would be able to beat Luffy in a fight. Let's say hypothetically that is true, even though that is some of the biggest cap I ever hear. If Zoro were to beat Luffy in a fight because Luffy's weak to his swords, he's still not stronger than Luffy because Luffy's the man who defeated Kaido. Luffy's the man who was toying around with an admiral and a Gorosei member. Things that Zoro cannot do and hasn't come close to doing. But he beats him in a fight, right? He beats Luffy in a fight because Luffy's weak to swords. So he should be stronger if we're gonna do that matchup scaling bullshit, right? But guys, please don't get me wrong. Doing the whole matchup shit where you debate speed, who has better attack power, who has this ability, who has that ability, is still very valid in most circumstances. Where it gets kind of invalid and I don't really understand it is when obviously there's going to be certain matchups that aren't favorable for people. Some people are just not going to be able to fight good against certain people because they counter their fighting style or they're just really a bad matchup for them. That shouldn't be the end all be all. That shouldn't be how you view everything when it comes to determining the stronger character. Some people would argue that Ulti's stronger than Katakuri because of what she's done, even though I don't even know what she's done to say that. But if you want to pull some feats out your ass, you could say that, right? Sure. But does that even really make sense? One of Kaido's weaker commanders, not even his top 3, is stronger than Big Mom's strongest commander? Like, how is that even possible? Like, that doesn't even make sense. Even if that was the Red Hair Pirates crew, that still low-key wouldn't make sense, but they have a case to have strong guys like that to where, okay, their crew is really, really different. But Big Mom and Kaido, they both just have a mid crew together. There's no reason that Kaido's Flying 6 member is stronger than Big Mom's strongest commander just because you think she can beat him. Even if she can hypothetically beat him, she still shouldn't be considered stronger than Katakuri. See why that doesn't make sense? So that's all I wanted to talk about with this video. In my live stream the other day, everyone was asking me, who do you think wins between so-and-so? And we're shocked about some outcomes. And some people didn't know this was my mentality, since to most people, whoever wins is stronger. So